Hi, Tanassanin, blessed love. Yeah, this is just a very quick reflection on this morning's reading, Genesis 18, and just reflecting on the point when Abraham was visited by three men, and those three men turned out to be God. Um, and just that reflection about entertaining strangers, how when entertaining strangers we don't know if we're entertaining angels, and that concept. And Abraham at that point didn't know that those three men were then going to transpire to be God. um and but his kind of welcomeness and openness then allowed that conversation with God to then enter into that space. And I think the concept of entertaining strangers is an interesting one, because it kind of tests our own levels of acceptedness and openness, and not to treat the world with suspicion. I think the idea of entertaining strangers can be challenging. It's one that I try absolutely to live by, so I'm not kind of trying to talk against it. But I think as we see throughout history, do you know what I mean? Even with enslavement, Africa, entertaining strangers, inviting, the Europeans in, um, then kind of backfired. We see that in Chinua Achebe's Things That Fall Apart. They're entertaining the strangers into the village, and then eventually they take over the village. And those kind of things we've seen happening over and over time throughout history. So there can be a resistance, I think, within the African diaspora sometimes to resist against entertaining strangers, because actually there's treating people with suspicion. What's their agenda? What do they want, etc. But I try not to live like that. Do you know what I mean? I try to take people as I find them. Do you know what I mean? And if people treat me well, I treat them well. I treat them well to start with, and then I treat them how they find. But I know it can be difficult for some people to be trusting strangers, um, and not to be exploited, etc., etc. Because sometimes these things can backfire, and I think sometimes if we've been burnt, then actually we put up a brick wall and not wanting to trust strangers, because then there's a question of what do they want from us, and are they looking for our weakness and these kind of things, and being in a defensive kind of position. But I think the way to live, and I'm not preaching, this is the way I live my life, is to entertain strangers and is to be open. And then if someone shows their face to be different, then that's when then you might then obviously set up boundaries. But I do start from a position of openness, rather than expecting the person to prove to me that they are of clean hands and of clean heart. And I just assume to begin with they're of clean heart and clean hands, and until I'm shown otherwise. But life expectancy is different, and I know that people can put up brick walls because they've got a reason from past experience. But I think there can be a challenge to not let past experience affect future possible experience, and let the past be the past, and dealing with the presence as a new day. But I know that's easier said than done. So I won't go on further, but I think that chapter does speak about and relate to that idea of entertaining strangers. And there's other places in the Bible where that's happened also. One of the famous times is after Jesus was resurrected, and then Mary saw him in the Garden of Gethsemane and didn't recognize. And there's other instances after Jesus's resurrection where he didn't look like traditional Jesus, and they were related to him. And there's other instances as well of strangers coming up to people in the Bible and how they related to them. So I will leave it there, just a little food for thought that I thought I'd just throw in. Yeah, have a blessed evening, and God willing, another reading in the morning. Yet a breath for cure. Blessed love.